So my name is George Honiball. I'm a senior manager at Microsoft. Spent most of my professional life in South Africa, working for some of the big consulting and financial services and retail companies. I then moved to the UK 5 years ago, where I'm a senior manager for Microsoft, supporting our employee experience platform and obviously working a lot with our AI engine called Copilot. So just a quick recap on what we've discussed so far. It's important to realize that AI is here to stay. It's already part of the professional world. It's moving very much into education as well. It's not something that can be avoided. It's not something that either you need to just kind of accept as a necessary evil. It's doing a lot of good. Yes, people are using AI for bad purposes as well, but equally, we need to counter that negative experience and negative activity with the positive and the good things that are out there as well from an AI's perspective. Also, I think important to realize that AI is not just about very basics. It is wonderful from an innovation perspective, from a creativity perspective. Remember, AI is not able to create art or perform artistically, but it can complement our creative decision-making process. So it will not necessarily just write a creative story by itself. You need to provide a prompt. It does get confused as well. Even the way in which it sometimes does calculations can be very confusing. I mean, I was testing it out at one stage doing word sums, and it got really confused. So it still is very much in its infancy, but we are seeing it developing and growing very, very quickly. And it's exciting. Even chatting to Stuart a little bit earlier, he was saying from when we first started the course a few months ago to where we are now, a lot of the generative AI that is out there, even the likes of the audio generators I spoke about, have really improved significantly. They're really becoming a lot more polished. They're far more forgiving. If you're not great at prompt engineering, it can guide you and help you. I know a lot of the technology we're using in Microsoft, they're actually providing us with prompts that we can reuse and recycle. Some people are even starting to copyright their prompts and selling them to people. So they really are, I mean, people are very innovative and they really are using AI to help become far more effective in the way that they operate and they work. Also, obviously, the future of work, which is what we're going to be talking about today. How is AI going to impact the world of work as we know it, and how quickly is it going to happen? Because, I mean, the self-driving cars is something that people have been talking about for years, and it's never been real. And now suddenly, I was sharing with Sharon a few minutes ago, I was driven home today in a Tesla Uber, and literally the Uber driver could take his hands completely off the steering wheel, and the taxi took us right to the front of our hotel without any human intervention at all. It was quite phenomenal. Very creepy, and even the Uber driver said it's taken him a long time to trust the Uber system driving home. But every time it does it, it's learning, it's improving. It's incredibly safe as well. It makes you aware of pedestrians walking around. Even the traffic light has stopped at the red traffic light. As it turned green, it sort of slid off very slowly to make sure that there weren't any other cars driving towards it. So it really is improving. And it's the same Tesla he bought a year ago, but with software updates that are sent through from Tesla on a regular basis, it's continually learning and improving as well. And that's why if you do use these AI engines and it gives you something that you're not happy about, please use the feedback mechanism. A lot of them have got a little thumbs down that you can use. Give them feedback, and also from an encouragement perspective, if it does get it right, click on that little thumbs up and give the people the positive praise and tell them why you think it was so good. So what we're going to be talking about today, and as Sharon mentioned earlier, this is our last chapter in the series. We've come to an end. It's been really fun, and I've really valued the wonderful questions and the feedback and the comments that people have made over these last 3 sessions, and it's a shame that it's coming to an end, but hopefully we will be able to start a new series next year, and we will be running a query early in 2025 to find out from you what it is you'd like us to cover and how we should proceed in future as well, because we really do see this technology coming to the fore and changing the way we work and even the way we sort of experience our home life as well, helping kids with homework. My daughter is doing English literature, and she had a really interesting question, and I asked ChatGPT to help, and it was quite phenomenal. The quality of the response that it gave, and my daughter still, she says it feels like cheating. So even there, I think we need to encourage our children to embrace and use the technology. And even at universities now, I've been chatting to a few lecturers, and they're wisening up to the whole experience as well. They can see when a student has been using the likes of ChatGPT or other generative AI to do their assignments. They can pick up on it as well. So it's important to educate not just the students, but the lecturers as well on what to look out for and how even they can improve the quality of work that they're delivering. So we'll be looking today at the potential impact of AI in the future workplace. We'll just sort of talk again in closing about more advanced prompt engineering techniques. For those of you that didn't join us in the first few sessions, prompt engineering is very different to the search phrases that we've been using traditionally with the search engines. It really is a different science and a different way to engaging with artificial intelligence systems. So we'll talk about that. In terms of continuous learning, if you're not learning, you're not growing. And what we've definitely seen is people that are not pushing their boundaries, people that are not hungry for information and sharing and collaborating with, get stuck behind very, very quickly. So really important to engage and sort of speak to communities, speak to people, read up about it. We were talking about the new Google engine that came out a while back, the chat engine that sort of didn't make it in the headlines for the right reasons. They are a competitor of ours, so I'm not going to go into any detail on what happened, but it wasn't really great. And I think, but it is good that people are pushing the boundaries and really trying to get out there and sort of innovate and bring about positive change in the world as well. And then finally, we're going to have hopefully a fairly good amount of time for questions and answers to set the scene for what we're going to be covering in 2024, 2025. I actually don't know where 2024 has gone. I can't believe that we're sitting here almost at the end of November already. It's been crazy. So in terms of predicting the impact of AI on the future workplace, I thought let's just have a look at a few roles, and then we'll also have a look at a few industries and see how that's been impacted. And even though, interestingly enough, they didn't make the cut over here, I think for me, the first group of people that have been hit directly by AI is definitely in the legal field. We've been seeing a lot of legal people using AI on a regular basis. It is so quick. Because AI is not emotional, it doesn't get tired. It's very scientific in the way it works through information. But being able to analyze legal documents, being able to find loopholes, being able to find points that maybe are uncertain or vague, the AI engine is able to pick those out for you very, very quickly. But definitely for those of you who've been sort of waiting for half an hour, 40 minutes. I think they calculated a while ago when we were trying to get through to HMRC, which is our tax engine here in the UK. They said if they calculated the entire time people waited in the past year, it sort of added up to over 80 years of people's lives that were waiting to get help from Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, which is shocking. So if we can automate that, and not just with a chatbot, but what is going to be coming soon is an actual live voice, and eventually even a video face like me right now will come up and you will engage and speak to the person. It'll look completely natural. The tone will change. The voice will change. There'll be very natural movement. And it could completely be a bot. It might not be a live person. Even sort of people reading the news and trainers already training documentation, you can use AI to generate very, very high quality video and audio as well. You can change the gender, you can change the tone, you can change the voice, you can change the sort of pace of the content as well. It really is profound and amazing. And of course, you can even use AI to generate a lot of the content as well. So we will see from a customer service perspective, not just, as I said earlier, chat, but actual live interactions where if you phone in your bank or phone into an insurance company, it will be answered by an AI chatbot that will be able to not just sort of type responses to you, but actually speak to you and engage with you and probe and answer questions for you as well, based on that company's LLM. So it's not going to be looking at the internet, it's going to be specifically related to that company's terms and conditions, rules of engagement. It's going to be particular to that company. And obviously, as you engage and learn and improve, as we have with Tesla cars, that way, in the same way, the experience that you're going to get is going to keep getting better and better, more polished, more sophisticated, and more advanced. What does it mean for customer service agents? Well, for some of them, it is likely that they will lose their jobs, but for others, they might be able to supervise chatbots. They might be able to do the analytics and learn from it and basically be able to stand on the shoulders of these AI engines as they're running and learn from it and help them improve, help them to train, help them to sort of analyze and see and fault find and improve the experience. Then, of course, from a truck and delivery driver perspective, I think the key benefits, if you've been dropping your kids off at school sort of 7 o'clock on these narrow roads and you've got these massive trucks driving past you and farmers with their combine harvesters driving around, and you think, what are these guys doing at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning when I'm trying to drop my kids off? Wouldn't it be better if they were driving in the middle of the night when the roads are quiet? And the problem is that often these drivers are tired and they work the same hours that we work. And the companies that they work for don't want to pay them overtime if they're driving at crazy hours of the night. But if it's a robot or a smart machine that's driving for you, that smart machine might not even be in the actual truck. It could be driven by a logistics company from the head office that's being supervised by a human, but it's an actual AI machine driving those trucks around with this sort of robots and cameras similar to what they're already using on many of the cars that are available to us already. They will be able to drive throughout the night. And the amazing thing is that people might not be even in the country. So imagine us as South Africans being able to drive trucks around in the US or in Europe because we're in a different time zone. And the highways are going to be beautifully clear because everybody's going to be in bed. You'll be able to drive trucks around in the middle of the night, avoid peak time traffic, avoid congestion, and not get tired. And the amazing thing is, it might not even just be one person that's monitoring those trucks. It could be multiple people from all over the world, basically crowdsourcing that experience. So it really is happening. Not just for delivery truck drivers, but you can imagine for taxi drivers potentially as well. I do know that there are already pilots happening where the taxi will arrive and there will not even be a human being in that car. You will literally just get in, the car will take you to your destination, and you can get out and the car will drive off and go and pick up its new person. We've not even spoken about the air taxis that are going to be coming. I know that there's been a lot of development with air taxis even that fly around and can carry up to, I think, 5 or 6 people. It's not science fiction anymore. It really is starting to happen. So it is phenomenal. In terms of data entry clerks, I think that is really something that is so important because obviously people get tired, people make mistakes, people don't pay attention. I won't mention who I bank with in South Africa, but some data entry clerk manually entered my name incorrectly. So I keep getting emails from my bank saying, "Dear Gurge," and that is a mistake. That is a human being that captured my name from a piece of paper incorrectly. And if both bots do it, they can check it, They'll be able to validate it and compare it to my ID that the bank has on record and correct how my name is spelt. So we really do see these things happening. But I think the key thing to realize at all times, there will still be human beings involved in the process. There will still be human beings that will need to check the quality of the information that's being captured, being able to do analysis and make sure that the robots that are doing the work for them are improving and providing a better service and are doing what they're doing accurately and helping them to make decisions as well. So at no time are the humans out of the loop, or do these bots sort of run off and do everything out of control. Obviously, from a manufacturing perspective as well, we are seeing robotics changing the way we do a lot of work. So, for example, in the manufacturing of motor vehicles, for those of you in the mining industry, there are many mines in Australia, for example, that are now being mined with robots. And the wonderful thing with robots is that they are not life-threatening, so you can send them into sort of fairly confined spaces. You can allow them to operate 24/7. They don't need to be transported around. They don't need to sort of go home. They can literally stay down underground in sort of really harsh living conditions where it might be really hot, it might be very damp, it might be very dry, but these robots just can keep operating. And the only time that humans would need to enter the mine would be to, for example, go and service these mining robots. Obviously, they're more powerful than what humans are as well. And also using cameras, you can track and see where they are too. So it really is wonderful. I mean, one massive company that has been doing a phenomenal job that are kind of unsung heroes, in my opinion, is John Deere. So the John Deere company has been around for a long time, but their combine harvesters, as they're harvesting the crops, they can assess the quality of the crop. Using satellite technology, they can identify where the good quality crop was yielded, where the crop was below standard, and they will then be able to go back and fertilize specific parts of that farmer's fields with extra nourishment, with extra compost and that type of thing. So it really is phenomenal where we're getting to when it comes to these types of technologies. Also, in terms of financial analysis, obviously, bots will be able to look at data sets, generate reports, and make predictions far more accurately than what humans have been able to do. I know for many, many years, many of the traders on the stock markets have now been replaced by bots. You don't see people sitting or standing on the trade floors anymore. A lot of it is being done by computers. And yes, people are being replaced by computers, but it frees people up to do something else that they love. It's not having to sort of lose your voice yelling and screaming and shouting over other traders on the trade floor. It's far more elegant and it's far more sophisticated and far more complex. And yes, it does open you up to a lot of risk. Yes, there are also a lot of measures and controls that are being put in place to try and control that. But please be wary of it. Be careful. Make sure that you read the fine print. As you're engaging with human beings, make sure that they are giving you the advice that you need for your behalf. Right, so that's looking at specific roles. Let's have a look at industry. So really interestingly, Amazon has been using bots for many years in their storage facilities, but we're going to see even more how when it comes to delivery. So instead of having to rely on human beings to drive some of the products around, and it's already starting to happen, not just with road or surface-based machinery, but even using drones to deliver medication in an emergency. I know that defibrillators, there are already certain companies out there that can have a defibrillator dropped in a matter of minutes to really, really sort of out of the way places that you can't even get to by road. In an emergency, they can get out there. So these types of things are real and are already available. If you go out on social media, or search for it and find articles about it. These are the types of things that are already out there. So you can imagine having your medication. If you're in a remote village in Africa that is really difficult to get to, you might only get deliveries on a monthly basis. Now you can order and start getting these deliveries with drones far more effectively and on a far more regular basis as well. In terms of Tesla, I can attest to how quickly and rapidly the technology is improving. I'm sure you're all aware of what has happened with the election in the US, where Donald Trump and Elon Musk had a massive victory, and you can see that there's huge investment that's going to be put in through to the future of technology. Just going to try and speed up a little bit. In terms of JP Morgan Chase as well, from a financial perspective, we've spoken about automated trading, fraud detection, not just from investments, but for example, people using credit cards um, and people opening and closing bank accounts, those types of fraud. The AI engines are going to be able to pick up on and deal with it far more better than it has in the past. In terms of Walmart, from a retailing perspective, obviously looking at inventory management, customer insights, looking at patterns and trends, making sure that inventory controls are in place, looking at where people are buying, even store layouts and things like that. It's a huge science behind where you put products in shops. People can track, and often people don't realize, but if you activate your Wi-Fi in a shopping center, you don't always read the terms and conditions. But what they often do is they're going to use your mobile device to track your shopping habits, to see when you walk in, where you park, what shops you go to, where you browse in those shops, and even what you purchase as well sometimes. So that is all being done already from a retailing perspective. In terms of electronic manufacturing, I know at the moment we've already spoken about chip development and chip design. AI engines are being used to significantly improve how those chips are engineered. Also, obviously, from motor vehicles, even the design of fridges and microwave ovens and other technological improvements, we are able to use AI to help make the world a better place. And yes, equally, it can be used to make weapons more dangerous, make missiles less easy to detect. But those are the types of things that you need to use AI to try and bring about good, as I said a little bit earlier in the world. Looking at prompt engineering techniques, so I'm just going to stop presenting now, and I'm just going to sort of just chat very quickly about prompt engineering. So just to explain once again, no longer are we using search engines to find information as much as what we did in the past. We really are using AI engines to prompt. And basically what happened, and Sharon shared this was one of her biggest breakthroughs in the first session that we had a few months ago. But you build a relationship with the chatbot. And remember that it's not just one chat that you have. You have different themes. You can ask the chatbot to do many different things at different times. And the wonderful thing is that you can go back. So, for example, you can start working on a short story. You can work on a business proposal. You can work on many different things at any time and go back and continue that conversation as if you'd never stopped. And the AI engine will be able to continue and build on that historical information as well. So really important to remember every now and then, if the chatbot seems to be giving you the really strangest options, remember, maybe it's going back to previous conversations that you've had that aren't relevant to this new conversation. So remember, there is often a new chat button that you need to click to start a new chat or a new conversation. In terms of best practice when it comes to prompt engineering, the key thing is to be really explicit and specific in the way that you write the prompt. So don't say, write something about AI. Be more specific. Say, for example, write a 500-word article on how AI impacts automation in the logistics sector. or write a 200-word blog post in a conventional tone with bullet points. You could even say, make it simple as if you're writing to a 10-year-old child, for example, and it will be able to do it. And if at first the the engine doesn't give you the information that you want, you can correct it, you can change it, you can even say, write it in another language, and it will be able to switch instantly to another language, which is really, really powerful and wonderful. Also, you can take it step by step through the process. So you can say to it, we're going to be writing a story. This is the context. These are the characters. Please go ahead and write the story for me. Um, you can even, for example, um, ask it to pretend to be a specialist and to respond to questions on your behalf. So, for example, you can say, you're a CEO giving a keynote speech on the future of renewable energy. What important topics would you cover? How would you start? Would it be appropriate to start with a joke, for example? And if you think it is appropriate to start with a joke, what joke would you recommend for CEOs of other organizations? So play around and try all these little types of things out. Also remember, the outputs don't have to just be in a text format. You can ask it to put information in a table, for example. And this happens very often where I start asking questions, it starts giving me this wall of words, and I say, you know what, it'll really help to just put it in a table. So please sort of put it with columns with these headings and explain what headings you want. And immediately the system will be able to give you that in a far more concise and succinct way. Um, Also, give it a little bit of sort of guidance in terms of the tone. Do you want it to be friendly and conversational? Do you want it to be very scientific? Do you want it to be very technical? Explain maybe even who the audience is. As I mentioned earlier, it's board members. It might be a group of school children that are 18. Explain to it what the level of the communication is going to be, and it will be able to change it as well. Something that somebody mentioned, which I thought was really profound as well, is that often these engines really struggle to if you tell them what not to do. So if, for example, you ask it to create a short story and it prepares it for you and provides you the information, you mustn't say to it, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. You have to always affirm and say, please do this, please do this, please do this. So that was something I found out very interesting as well. Also, remember, some people think that they can teach the LLM something. Now, remember, often this is millions and millions and millions of rows of data. So if the system does make a mistake, if it makes a reference that's incorrect, or, for example, says that the capital of South Africa is Johannesburg and not Pretoria, if you type into it and say, you got it wrong, it's not Johannesburg, it's Pretoria, the machine is going to say, wonderful, thank you for correcting me. And if you ask the question, it's going to give the same response again. It's going to say it's Johannesburg, because that is already ingrained in the system. So really difficult to just fix it. And that's why you need to, unfortunately, report it to a technical person. They can then go in and they will correct that as well. So we're in a process of continual improvement. And that's why it's so important, as I mentioned earlier, to give feedback as you go through it as well. Just a reminder, don't tell the system what not to do, tell it what you want it to do. As I mentioned earlier as well, you might need to have multiple steps in the way that you do it, summarize the information in bullet points, rewrite it in a formal tone, write it as if it's a business report now. And even when you're brainstorming, start off very wild, start off in a very sort of diverse way. Be very divergent in the way that you're thinking. And then as you start finding what you're wanting to, you can be more convergent in the way that you think until you're finally getting it perfectly right. And it's very seldom that you're going to get it perfect immediately with your first prompt. It really is something that you need to work on. Um, Also evaluate the outputs and be very critical about it. Sort of explain to the system what it is that you're wanting to do. And you can even ask it to sort of write code for you as well. That's a new system that we're using a lot with Microsoft is in GitHub. A lot of coders now are using Copilot in GitHub to generate a lot of the code on their behalf. So we no longer need to have people sitting writing hundreds of rows of code. The system can auto-populate it and auto-generate it for you, and even help with errors. So you can cut a program code that's not working. You can cut it out, paste it into GitHub, for example, and it will immediately not only be able to do the error finding and see where the errors are, but recommend improvements to it to try and minimize it and cut it down across multiple different programming languages. So we really do see that happening really, really quickly. Something else to consider as well is, remember, you need to explain to it, for example, that you want to work in kilometers or meters or miles. Be very clear in terms of what you're wanting to do as well. And also, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, for example, explain who the people are that you're trying to reach with this communication. You can even ask it. I know within Microsoft now, you can create business summaries or proposals in Word. Trying to do that in Excel is not going to work well. Even trying to do it in PowerPoint is not really the right way to do it. That is why you would need Word too. But obviously, if you're wanting to prepare a graphical representation of very advanced information, you'd want to do that in PowerPoint probably, or even in Power BI. So make sure that you choose the right vehicle to do that. Obviously, you can use AI to help you prepare, but don't think that it's going to do everything for you. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we as human beings are still in control. Very, very much so. I'm just going to have a look very quickly at some of the questions that have come through. We've got about another 10 minutes left. So does Copilot have a fine-tuning model like ChatGPT? So Ethan, that's a very good question. So that is where, once again, this ongoing continuous improvement and feedback comes in. People are aware if the system does glitch, if it's not working correctly, you can report it as well. And anything that you pick up that seems incorrect, you need to point it out. So as I mentioned earlier, you cannot go and correct how a large language model is thinking. You need to report it to the people that are in control of it, and it might not be fixed immediately because, remember, it sometimes takes a long time for that data to refresh. So really important for you to give people feedback. Cedric saying the CEO of NDIA said you're wasting time learning programming. AI will do it all. Absolutely. But remember, it is still in the hands of the programmers to be able to populate it. So you will be able to use it the right way. But remember, we've been seeing this coming with third and fourth generation languages, is the sort of previous way that we've been writing code has really changed. It's far more complex, far more sophisticated now. So we've spoken about prompt engineering, staying at the head of the curve with continuous learning. So there are multiple sources available. There's a lot of free content out there. Believe it or not, YouTube is a really good source to go and have a look. Also, LinkedIn is a very good source. There's some very, very good content out there. For those of you that have got LinkedIn Learning accounts, I do encourage you to try some of the LinkedIn Learning content. For those of you that are using Microsoft products, we have a tool called Viva Learning. If you have Copilot that's just been introduced, we do have the Copilot Academy that's available to you through Viva Learning as well. So I do encourage you to go and try that out as well. It's really, really high quality. They start with the basics of prompt engineering, for example, and it's really good to be informed. And I encourage you even go old school, take some books out of the library on prompt engineering, find online books as well. If you like listening to music in Spotify, they have a few audiobooks about the concepts of that as well, and even have some technical people explaining about the concepts of large language models and prompt engineering and things like that. So I really do encourage you to get it out there and try that out. So just even though I do work for Microsoft, I still do try out lots of other websites as well. If you want to, I can just share with you. Obviously, OpenAI is a really, really good place to start. Another website that I found fairly recently that's been really good is Perplexity. So I'm just going to paste their website in the chats as well. So I do encourage you to sort of try out lots of different. There we go. It's in the link. I'm sure you all know ChatGPT. They've actually moved away from the OpenAI URL recently, so they've got their own URL now that you can go to chatgpt.com. Also, just be very careful. There are a lot of sort of fake applications out there as well. So you'll see that people say it's a ChatGPT application available through the Google Store or through the Apple Store, and it isn't. So always make sure that it must be ChatGPT from OpenAI. That is the one that you want. Somebody's saying, thank you for the informative presentation. Can't help but wonder, all these technologies are advancing rapidly, and it's a bit hard to catch up because of the rate of advancement. If I look at South Africa, with disparities with rich and poor, high rates of unemployment, I can't help but wonder if this advancement is beneficial or do we wish widening the gap? So I think the biggest concern that I've got about South Africa, and this is working with people in Europe who've given me this feedback as well, is specifically the costs of data in South Africa. I think for young people to be able to access YouTube and watch videos, they need data. For a lot of people as well, they don't necessarily have computers. A lot of the time, their learning tools are their mobile phones. So if they don't have data, how are they going to access that? So I do absolutely agree. I think it's a really valid point, and it is a huge concern of mine. I mean, a lot of the technology that we provide as Microsoft requires you to have data. And one big customer that we were working with in South Africa, their frontline workers pushed back to their employer and said, you're expecting us to access resources using our own data, but it's too expensive. And literally, these people couldn't understand what people were saying about data being expensive because they've never lived in South Africa. As far as they're concerned, data is almost a free commodity. I mean, here in Europe, if you go to a hotel, if you're sitting on a bus, even now if you're sitting on a train underground, you don't even need to be above ground. You can be underground and you can still access Wi-Fi. A lot of the times, even it's amazing. You can take your phone charger with you and you can plug it in. I mean, on flights now, when you're flying in the air, sort of 10,000 meters above the earth with satellite technology now, you can be connected to the internet and make phone calls and surf the internet and stream videos live on flights flying over the ocean. So it really is amazing what's out there. But I am concerned about South Africa because, I mean, I even remember when I was working for Neotel, that was something we were trying to do is bring the cost of data down in South Africa. I don't think we've managed to really get there. So that definitely is a huge concern, is if South Africa is not keeping up with the technological advancements that are happening in the first world or in the developed world, it is going to sort of separate and widen that gap between economies that are still developing and growing and the developed world as well. So I think that's a very good point. Let me see, there's another question. How can we maintain data protection while using AI tools like ChatGPT? Many of my clients are concerned about their data. Yes, so that's a really, really important point, Mike. That is something that we as Microsoft take very seriously. We do not use any of companies' data to train the large language models. So obviously, if you have Copilot built into your system and it is accessing your data, we as Microsoft do not access that information. That is not true for all of the service providers. So I know that one of the big competitors out there that have got internal collaboration tools available to their customers, they're able to track and monitor that internal content. So if they're publishing emails or sending out communications to the employees internally, the service provider can access that information, which is really a concern of mine. So just be careful when you are using service providers to make sure that you are doing that. But I think the key thing to realize, Mike, is if you as a company are not providing tools like Copilot, for example, employees have gotten used to using this technology now. So at university, they're taught to start using ChatGPT, but often they're not taught about the warning of not having proprietary information on ChatGPT. So just to remind you, it is an open forum system. Anybody can access it. So you don't want to put, for example, your company's financials in the system and ask ChatGPT what it thinks about that. That's not what you want to do. If you've got sort of very specialized technological scientific knowledge, you don't want to put it on ChatGPT because there is a risk that other people might be able to access that. So Cedric is saying that he's doing his master's in social entrepreneurship, gaining traction around the world. It really is wonderful to use AI for good that way. And I think use AI to identify potential opportunities, find out where there's risk, find out where there's opportunities to use AI to create new jobs, create new work, and solve world problems. So Mike said 100% correct. That's good to hear, Mike. Sharon, I think we are almost done with the questions and answers. Guys, thanks so much. It's always so wonderful talking to you because you keep the questions going. I see that the numbers have hardly dropped either. We've had about 60 people consistently on the chat, which is really wonderful. I'm going to, I don't know, Sharon, if you want to say anything before we close, or should I stop recording now?
Only just to say thank you 4 times. It's been wonderful.